I'm Professor of Theatre and Performance Studies. Some of you know, okay, we know what theatre is. But what is performance studies? Performance studies is actually anthropology. I began actually with a business degree. People were interested in money. But I decided, no, I was more interested in the community, in people. And so I sort of like moved into anthropology. Performance studies is a way of learning about people through theatre. So I use my theatre knowledge. I've been in theatre for more than 40 years, I know, to get a new job, to do research, to think, to study about the people I love. I just love people. This is a mess. Performance studies, the premise is that everything you do in the everyday, everything that you do in the everyday, be you're writing, creative in writing, or in drawing, or in painting, or in poetry, how you behave in the elevator, that's all theatre. It's a script that you can read to find out what's going on in here. For example, if you're in the elevator, in performance studies, we ask, what did you do in the elevator? And most of us in the elevator, we do this. We don't do this. We do this. We are performing, if you read the text, I am not here, I'm not here, I'm not here. So what you do is you have a blank face, emotionless, and you look at a space sort of like in front of you that is not really there. Because if the thing is right there in front of you, you would look like this. We perform, I am not really here. Why? Because we are animals, and animals are territorial. You come into my space and I'm going to give you this. And so we don't want to get this. And we perform, I am not here. So I use this performance studies. It's really quite beautiful to examine art, which I love dearly, to get an extra pleasure from art. I do get moved by beautiful art, things that really aesthetically pleasing. But more than anything, my brain goes, what are they doing? Why did they do this? What are they trying to tell us? And so I'd like to share with you some of my kind of work. Now this is the abbey. It's called Sant'Angelo after the Archangel in Formis Capua in the 11th century. And they had a whole lot of Byzantine, Greek artists come up from Constantinople to paint frescoes on the walls. Here's one of them. It shows Judas helping himself to some lamb. We Asians know you're not supposed to do that before people can eat. Go, right? You're not supposed to do that. So everybody's really cross with Judas. But of course we know that's not really true. They're all angry with Judas because Jesus Christ said, there's a traitor in our midst, and I am going to show you who that traitor is by giving them some bread with gravy. Now the Byzantine artist was pretty good as an artist, and he loved to eat. He didn't know his Bible studies, he failed his Bible studies, because he doesn't show Judas helping himself to some bread. He showed Judas helping himself to some lamb. Though when I looked at the picture, I said, hang on, that looked like chicken. Yeah, I didn't really think that. And not for the first time I said to myself, why is medieval art so crappy? I said, oh, well, okay, 1,000 years ago, what do we know how to draw? We can't draw. You ask me to draw a house, I still draw like that, like that, like that, like that, and there's a path going down, yeah? But that would be wrong too, because 1,000 years before we painted Judas helping himself with some lamb, the Greeks, the magnificent art. This is the Apollo Belvedere, which is considered the zenith, the peak of art in classical antiquity. And this is another fresco. but in 62 AD, not the 11th century. So somewhere along the way, the Greeks lost the plot. They went from hero to zero. But no, the reason why we have this change in art, the quality of the art, the aesthetics, is because of culture. The Greeks in classical antiquity believed in gods that they thought were like humans. Gods married, they divorced, they murdered, they stole, they drank themselves drunk. And they believed that if you went into their temples, you would actually see the god, just like you, looking just like you. Kind of handsomer and more beautiful, I suppose. But that's why they made their images look like ordinary people. Because those were their gods. But in medieval days, they were Christians. The Europeans were Christians. And they believed in a divinity, in God on high. Not drinking and getting drunk and marrying and murdering people. And it was not met for them to paint a god that looked like them. So medieval art, all focused on the Bible, painted in a very naive style. Because if they did it with virtuosic naturalism, that's the thing that made us go, ah, you know, the Apollo Belvedere. It looks so human, even though it's marble. Ooh. They deliberately painted naive, because virtuosic naturalism would have talked about the artist and less about God. This is Florence, 1493, the time of Leonardo da Vinci, the Renaissance. Michelangelo, whose work made us go, why was that so? They lost the plot and they found the plot again. Because in the Renaissance they were Christians too, but with a different way of thinking. In the Renaissance around the 1300s, the bubonic plague came and wiped out almost half of the population. So there were not enough workers. And so whatever workers were left were very, very valuable. The way Singaporeans are now very, very valuable because we don't have any more foreign workers to serve at the restaurants, to wash dishes. People began to believe, hey, I'm important. I'm not going to work for you for $5 a day. Make it $10. Why don't you make it $15? That kind of thing. I heard there were people, my friend runs a restaurant, and when they tried to get a dishwasher, they paid $3,000 a month for a dishwasher, and they said, and where's your restaurant? Near MRT or not? Okay. This is exactly what they had, what the Singaporeans said. Anyway, in 1493, among other things that were discovered was banking. They were merchants, they were traders, money exchanging all the place. And this good old Lorenzo de Medici, Lorenzo the Magnificent, who came from the de Medici family. They ran the biggest banks in Europe. And because they had so much money from their little family, they produced 4 popes and a whole lot of rulers. People therefore began to think, hang on, just like that, that was said on. I can make myself rich. I can be poor. If I want to be rich, I've got to get up and do it. I'll do it. If I don't do anything, I'm not going to get the money, right? So as you plant, so as you will sow. Okay. So they began to say, it's me. The divine is in me. I got to make myself divine. I've got to work hard. I got ACJC, for example. And then I can become famous or whatever. Okay? They're going to do it. artists began to paint in virtuosic naturalism. They went back to classical antiquity. Everything was in classical antiquity was good. In between, these naive opal paintings were bad. Here we have Leonardo da Vinci. And he not only painted Christ and Mother Mary to look like humans. They were very, very human. They went back to classical antiquity. Don't forget, because they were painting their God. And now God was in them again. God was within the human being. That was divine. So people began to think, now hang on, that's me, right? God has given me a chance, but if I'm not going to do anything about it, I'm going to be nothing. So get out and study. If you're a sort, you're not going to pass, that kind of a thing. And therefore people began to think that, look, I can think for myself. I can decide for myself. I don't need to be told, look, you've got to behave this way and that way by the church or a monarchy. And people began to have revolution. In America, they told their British colonial masters, okay, that's fine, now thank you very much, please go back. Yeah? And the French for liberty, equality, fraternity, and Tsarist Russia. The Bolsheviks went and told the Tsars, thank you very much, please go. Now, got to sort of like be. Okay. So people said, look, don't tell me what's right or what's wrong. And Mary Cassette painted her sister Lydia leaning on her arms in the loge. That was the balcony in the theatre. And she painted her own sister using, for the skin especially, white and pink and purple and yellow and a bit of green. And look at the face. It looks as if she's wearing a face mask, you know, kind of stuff of mud that people put on their face. She painted Lydia the way she wanted to paint Lydia. She wanted to paint Lydia the way she felt that the lights played from the chandeliers, bouncing on that yellow dress, reflecting up, and so on and so forth, and mixing with the dark. So she was doing an impressionistic painting of her own sister Lydia, not a real Michelangelo, Leonardo da Vinci, let's say, who did actually sfumato. You know, he sort of like blended all the lines, kind of soft, and you never knew where the lines began or not. Like, boom, you saw a nose. Boom, you saw an ear. She painted the way she wanted to because she was getting a hell of a lot more independent in her thinking. And that was how art went on. And she was able to tell us how translucent her sister Lydia's skin was, because Lydia's a redhead. And they're very, very fair, the redheads. Now Pablo Picasso said, oh no, that's my woman. And you say, hang on, and the women are not like that, all angular, the women are kind of soft and curvy. You know, your breast is practically square. And he painted the woman with a face, like an African mask, that's a face, they're not wearing masks. But he said, that's a woman. Okay, and it is a woman. This painting is Le Demoiselle d'Avignon, which is completely priceless. Marcel Duchamp, I don't know how many of you know him. In 1970, he created what was voted as the 20th century most important artwork. He made the sculpture Fountain. And he said, hey, hang on, that's not a sculpture, that's a urinal. You went to the store and you bought the wretched thing, and you stuck it there and then you signed it, and you say, oh, that's a sculpture. How can they? Of course. Sven, who told you that to be sculpture, I gotta make it? Who said? You said? I don't believe you. If I can go to the store and I can buy sort of a nice looking thing with porcelain and all, and water coming out of it, and I say that's a fountain, it's a sculpture fountain, then it is. So he began to defy, and he was voted the most important artist of that time because he made that point. I can do what I want, and if I say it's art and I sign on it, it is art. Now, Western art makes you think, makes you ask questions. Now, hang on. If I wanted to paint a woman squarish, why not? You don't think that's a woman? No, I think it's a woman. That's the most important. And if I can convince people that that's important, well, it's better. Yeah, I can paint a Brillo box out of cardboard and say that's art. And it's going to be worth millions of dollars, as Andy Warhol has enjoyed. But Chinese art is no less about the society and the culture. It is about feeling society and culture. Here is a painting, the most important landscape painting of Northern Song, made in the year 1000, quite close to the naive painting of the medieval people, actually. And as you know, landscape paintings in China have enormous mountains, lots of water, and beautiful trees. And landscape artists like to put in little people. So here we find this. And there, hang on, we have this. And here we have this. Landscape artists in China sculpted tiny little people with this enormous, majestic landscape. That is their life. And people say, you see? That's the Buddhist sensibility. It tells us, look, we're unimportant. We're unimportant in the whole scheme of life. But I don't think that Kouossi felt that way. He was more Taoist. And he said that we human beings are totally in harmony with life. So, he painted a picture of contentment because he was very, very contented living in the Northern Song, where the economy was good. That was when they started doing merchant trading and all that kind of stuff in industry. This is a main painting by Su Wei, and it caught my eye because, now if the pointer will work for me, decided not to work for me too. Because I noticed how the round of this lovely leaf, which is beautiful, beautifully colored with ink, is repeated in the little round crab. So I first noticed the painting because I liked the repetition of shapes. And then I read the little poetry. I didn't read it, I'm not good enough. I read about it, and there was a poem here. And then I realized it was quite different. You see, Su Wei was Ming, but before Ming there was Yuan. Yuan, the Mongolian, is a Mongolian dynasty. For the first time, you had the foreigners on the throne of China. And so when the Mongolians came in, the first thing they did was they kicked out all the Chinese from court. And all these fellows who were literati scholars had to go off to the forest and live, on buds and roots and stuff like that. And they developed the tradition of scholar artists, painted well, wrote beautiful poetry for nothing. And they all looked down their noses upon the professional artists who had to go there to earn money. They were amateur artists and very, very proud of it. So Su Wei was Ming, which followed Yuan, but he followed the tradition of his brethren before, and he lived and died in poverty. So he was kind of contented, like Guru Kouossi. He saw the lotus leaf, and he saw underneath the lotus leaf a crab that came up with his pincers out there trying to defend himself. And Kouossi said, and picked up the crab, brought it home, cooked it, and ate it. It was lovely, full of rich fat and milk. And it made Su Wei think about Dong Zhuo. Dong Zhuo was a terrible tyrant of the Eastern Han, was from the 2nd century, who murdered the child emperor and who killed people in terrible ways for fun, for dinner entertainment. But of course, that was political. One day, Dong Zhuo himself was assassinated by his own adopted son, who was the general. And the people who were so terrified under his rule took revenge on his corpse. They put a wick into his navel and they lit the wick. And Tonto was so fat, his fat kept the flame alive for several days. What dark thoughts entered Sue's mind when he drew this lovely picture of the crab. This is what he wrote. In Chinese art, the poem goes with the painting. You sort of like do both. This is a contemporary Chinese artist, and we are very, very fortunate in Singapore to have a tremendous donation of his work. And he actually is my great favorite. This is called City Night, and it's by Wu Guozhong. The whole paper is filled with these lines and squares and dots, things like that. And so Wu Guozhong wasn't painting, I mean, where God looked like city, you say. So it was not realistic. Neither is it naive. Wu Guozhong painted feelings. He painted the city as suffocation. And all this wonderful thing about individualism did lead a bad thing, because you realize I'm alone, I'm an individual. And that's why we have what's called the existential angst. We're really, really sad very often because we can be next to our best friend, we can be in a group of people who are laughing and all that, and you're laughing with them and all that, but deep within you feel sad. They call it anomie. And that's why I'm very much Asian, I'm very communitarian. That means I like community. Hence, I became an anthropologist. So I hope that I would leave you with a whole lot of thoughts that way. Individualism, communitarianism, being Asian, being Western-minded, enjoying each culture for the works they do. Now I'm just going to show you some references to let you know that I'm a professor, and if you ever write essays for me, you make sure you do a bibliography, you make sure you have that citation. That's what we have to do. Okay, so join me next time, okay? In class, bye.